In other developments, Hamas and other Palestinian factions have discussed the next phases of the Gaza ceasefire at a meeting in Egypt, in particular how the Strip will be governed. In a joint statement, they agreed to hand over the administration of Gaza to a temporary Palestinian committee composed of independent specialists. They say the committee will be responsible for managing daily life and basic services in cooperation with Arab partners and international institutions based on transparency and national accountability. Well, let's speak to Chris Doyle about this. He's joining us from London. He's a commentator on Middle East affairs and the director of the Council for British-Arab Understanding. Thank you so much, Chris, for being with us. How significant is it, first, a step that Palestinian factions are agreeing to hand administration of Gaza to this temporary committee? And do you think it's a viable political pathway for Palestinians?
Having a apolitical technocratic committee was within the 20 points that Donald Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed. So if this is accepted, then of course it will be welcome, because Palestinians need to have some form of day-to-day governance within the Strip. But there's some very, very heavy caveats to this. Israel has made it very clear that any committee that has had the hand of Hamas in selecting it won't be acceptable. So there is no clarity as to whether the United States will agree to this or not. So it remains to be seen who is on this committee, exactly what its powers and authorities will be, and what will be its sources of income. How will it operate? We don't know any of this. But it actually goes to show one of the great problems and the challenges, because Trump and Netanyahu were so desperate to exclude in any way, shape or form the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, what many states recently have been recognizing, the state of Palestine, in terms of having some form of governance within Gaza. And that is a real challenge.
Yeah, and that really highlights some of the contradictions in this Trump plan, doesn't it? And I wanted to unpack some of those with you, the U.S. policy contradictions. We've had strong American statements about reconstruction of Gaza, but as you've said, the focus also seems to be on excluding some actors like UNRWA, for example, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, in Gaza's future. To what extent do these contradictions, you think, undermine the ability to build a sustainable peace plan?
Massively. If there was one element to those proposals that provided some relief, it was that the United Nations and its agencies would be allowed to operate and distribute aid in Gaza without interference. Without interference was the term from the two parties. Well, if you deny UNRWA, which of course is a UN agency dealing with Palestine refugees, the ability to operate in Gaza, which Marco Rubio insists will be the case, then that is a violation of those very points. UNRWA is the largest agency in the Gaza Strip, has the greatest history of operating there. It knows all the people, the clans, the families, how it operates. It has all the necessary bits of infrastructure necessary to get aid in, to provide primary healthcare and education as well, albeit from tents. So it's crucial that UNRWA is allowed in. So other powers have to insist now that the US lifts its veto on this and ensures that UNRWA can participate, but also other aid agencies, that Israel is also banning from operating in the Gaza Strip. Major international aid agencies who will not give in to draconian new restrictions that Israel wishes to impose upon them.
Another point of contention, Chris, is the International Stabilisation Force, the so-called ISF, which is supposed to come into effect in the second phase of the peace plan. We're not there yet, and we don't even know what mandate this force would operate under, whether it's through the UN Security Council or another framework. But the Americans have already said that Israel needs to be comfortable with who participates in this force. But from a Palestinian perspective, what would make such a force credible and acceptable, you think?
Any force that goes into a territory must have at its heart that it has the interests of the people that it's meant to be assisting right at the center of its function. So what we have here is the inversion of what should be the case. It is the occupying power, the party that has been committing genocide in Gaza, Israel, that seems to be given some sort of veto of who participates in Gaza, as opposed to the Palestinians having a say in what sort of forces go into Gaza. And this is completely the wrong way around. If you want to bring stability and security to Gaza, within Gaza, then those forces need the trust of the local population. It's the same anywhere in any post-conflict environment with any peacekeeping force. So whoever goes in must have the trust of Palestinians. And to do that, quite likely, they may come from countries that, like Turkey, that doesn't have a great relationship with Israel.
Chris, very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your insight. Chris Doyle joining us there from London.